The regular meeting of the St. Joseph County Council, February 13th, 2018 is now called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation, which will be given this evening by Pastor Jim McConnell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, friends, let us bow our heads, if you will, quiet your spirit and quiet your minds. Spirit of life, come unto us now that we might find within ourselves the courage and virtue we need to perform the tasks that are set before us tonight. Let us find within ourselves a clarity of vision that has as its goal justice and equality for all. Let us find within ourselves the will to govern without ego for the good of the people of this county and for our planet with all its manifold life forms. Let us find within ourselves ethical discernment. Let us find within ourselves a spirit of tolerance for views that are not our own. Let us find within ourselves the willingness to compromise when compromise is necessary for the common good. Let us find within ourselves a wholesome charity for our fellow human beings. Let us find within ourselves a sacred anger against those institutions and systems that marginalize the poor and disenfranchise the weak. Finally, and most importantly, let us find within ourselves that great love that is the root and foundation of all life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor McConnell. Next on the agenda are petitions, communications, and miscellaneous matters. Mr. Toloyan.
Mr. President, I would nominate Casey Gum to the New Carlisle Olive Township Public Library Board of Trustees.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations at this time? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. Do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Casey Gum is nominated to the New Carlisle Olive Township Public Library Board of Trustees. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 2nd and the January 9th, 2018 meetings?
So moved.
Hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes from the January 2nd and the January 9th meetings are approved. Report from the county auditor.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Report from county commissioners. Mr. Costelli.
President Morton, esteemed members of council, my name is Andy Costelli, President of the Board of Commissioners, officer of the 7th floor of this building. Brief update, I just want to let you know that hopefully at next week's meeting, the Board of Commissioners are looking to hire Cohen and Malad, a law firm in Indianapolis, to join Marshall County and about 30 other municipalities and counties across the state as we look to investigate an opioid lawsuit against different drug manufacturers and other entities that might be appropriate. So we're hopeful to take that action at our meeting on Tuesday. Also, to let you know, we had a very productive meeting regarding the LEAF RFP. Our hope is also in 2 weeks from today to be able to release that RFP so we can begin to move forward with that process as well. And then just mark on your calendars, next month is the State of the County. The best darn 7 minutes you're going to have all day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Report from any council special committees.
Mr. Morton,
Mr. Dandrat.
just a quick report on the South Shore projects that we've been following, the double tracking project and West Lake Border project. When the President's budget came out, they remain to be unrated, meaning they have not gotten a rating either up or down, whether they should progress forward. Mike Nolan, the President of South Shore, has spoke to the Federal Transit Administration, and they're going to have a teleconference on Thursday. What the South Shore is planning on doing now is to keep the projects going in order to enhance the rating on the project. They're going to continue with their environmental studies, the NEPA, it's called NEPA studies. They're going to continue on with that. And the other part that the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, was confused about was our funding mechanism, how we had so much local participation, state participation, and the RDAs, both in Northwest Indiana and our RDA over here in South Bend, Elkhart area. There's a little confusing to them. So he thinks by positioning us, we're continuing our environmental studies and getting the full explanation to the feds, we might have a better rating on those projects, and still anticipates them to be rated. We still have support for Congressman Walorski, Senators Todd Donnelly, Congressman Pete Wisklowski. Our congressional team is still supportive of this, and according to Mike, Nolan fully expects these projects to be funded through a congressional act versus the presidential budget. And that's an update on that. I also wanted to point out in the audience tonight is a comrade of mine who's the curator at the Studebaker National Museum. He's in attendance. He's also a fellow classmate of mine from the Leadership South Bend Mishawaka class, Aaron Workington, in the audience tonight. We welcome Aaron from the Studebaker National Museum. He's new to our area and appreciate what he does for us, preserving the heritage of South Bend Studebaker legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other reports from any other council special committees? Mr. Nolan.
Just a bad question. You mentioned that they're confused about the funding. I thought that was actually a good thing. So,
The funding,
can you explain what they
well, the funding, as we all see it, is a good thing. The fact there's so much participation with local, state, and regional authorities, we view that as a good thing. We thought it was a home run. I guess in the history of the FDA, they've never quite seen a project with that type of funding scheme. And according to Mike Nolan, it quite frankly caught them off guard. So they're actually doing a little more research as to that. They didn't think we had our local match in place, when in fact we do have it in place.
Okay.
And they were surprised that there was such local participation. When you get over Lake County, there's 17 units of government that are participating, so it's hard for them to believe that those 17 units of government are actually in unison and participating in the project, the one that affects their portion of the two projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next on the agenda are first readings. At the request of the petitioner, Bill 14-18 is being withdrawn. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, Bill number 15-18?
An ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Uses Chapter 154 Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code as amended. The property is located at 15615 State Road 23 from R Single Family District, B District, to B District. Petitioners Harold and Laverne Luce.
Bill number 1518 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee.
Bill 1618, a resolution of the St. Joseph County Council declaring a portion of St. Joseph County an economic revitalization area pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1-1. Declaratory resolution. Petitioner Abtrax Industries, Inc.
Bill number 1618 is assigned to the Land Use Committee. That concludes first readings for this evening. Next on the agenda are resolutions. Clerk, will you please read Bill number 10-18?
A resolution of the St. Joseph County Council recognizing and honoring Rudolph Rudy Pitzlick.
Petitioner.
Robert Krasinski, office located on the 4th floor here at the County City Building. Tonight I am introducing Resolution R2-18, a resolution of the St. Joseph County Council recognizing and honoring Rudolph Rudy Pitzlick. Whereas Rudolph Rudy Pitzlick will turn 100 years of age on February 10th, 2018, and whereas Rudy worked for over 35 years at the Torrington in South Bend and was instrumental in repair specialist who was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and often needed to make crucial repairs even on weekends and holidays. And whereas Rudy was a longtime outstanding member of the UAW Local 5 for over 30 years. And whereas Rudy excels in woodworking and painting. And whereas as a lifelong member of St. Mary's Parish in South Bend, has helped on many projects, including helping to restore the pews of the church. And whereas Rudy has had an excellent memory and recall of the neighborhoods in South Bend and has helped several historians fill his historical information in support of the history of our community. Whereas St. Mary's Parish in South Bend has dedicated February 11, 2018 as Rudy Pislick Day and will have a special Mass intentions for Rudy and celebration in his honor. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the St. Joseph County Council that, Section 1, on behalf of the citizens, the St. Joseph County Council wishes to extend birthday wishes and congratulations to Rudy on his tremendous life of service to the community, church, and to the citizens of St. Joseph County. Section 2, the resolution shall be in full force on effect from and after its passage.
Thank you.
That's it. If I can make a couple more comments about Mr. Pislick. I had to detain in his kitchen for about an hour and a half along with Father Charles and found him to be very fascinating. And I know the sheriff is here, but I don't know if he has any jurisdiction back then, Rudy, but Rudy also told me about how he used to do some bootlegging back then, and he knew a lot of bootleggers. But that was a little bit before my time. You know? But
Yeah, that's true.
he is a fascinating individual. But
Thank you.
Father Charles, would you like to say?
Certainly. Esteemed members of the County Council, Reverend Charles Alistowski, pastor of St. Mary's Parish, 1601 West Sample Street in South Bend. We brought a full contingency of parishioners to help congratulate Rudy on this momentous occasion. And he has been a wonderful example for living in our community, being of service to our community, and to those in the community. And so we are very happy and ecstatic to be able to celebrate this great occasion with you and with Rudy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Father.
If it wasn't for the parishioners of St. Mary's Parish, a couple good neighbors, and the tremendous support of Real Services, Rudy wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, I
But
even cook.
He gets a tremendous amount of support from Real Services. Thank you. You want to say anything, Rudy? You want to say a couple words?
Yeah, well, I thank you for this event, and I wish you all luck. And I'm happy and to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir. It's great.
Pleasure to meet you, Rudy. God bless you.
Thank you. And thank you. And thank you again.
We'll get some ink out of this. Oh, that's professional job.
Really? No difference in one job?
That's professional work. Goodness, it's
Rudy.
How sweet.
Okay, hold on. One more thing.
You got a vote, man.
Yeah.
She's going to congratulate me.
We haven't had a
Put him
vote.
on TV.
We have a motion on bill number 1018.
Motion for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah.
Motion to pass bill number 1018 was made by Councilman Cahill, and seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments from any council member on bill 1018?
Mr. Board,
Mr. Catanzaro?
I'd like to congratulate Rudy. It's a pleasure and honor to meet him tonight, and nice that the congregation came out and supported him. I also just would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to mention Clarence White's here, the spiritual elder, the Pega Band of Ottawa meetings. I want to just welcome Clarence and all of his contingent here from St. Mary's.
Thank you. Any further comments from any council member? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. Let the record show that Bill number 1018 was passed unanimously by a vote of 9 to 0. Congratulations. Clerk, will you please read the next bill? First on the resolution, bill number 1118.
Resolution of St. Joseph County Council authorizing approval of an interlocal agreement between St. Joseph County and the City of South Bend regarding ambulance services.
Mr. Triple?
For many years, the City of South Bend has provided the appropriate services to the county. This contract was approved by the Commissioners, I believe it was in November, pursuant to Indiana Code, since it was an interlocal agreement that set forth the agreements between the city and the county. It needs to be approved by the county council,
Thank you.
and that is all. Same service that the county has always had from the city.
Thank you. Any questions from any member of council for Mr. Triple? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on bill number 1118. Does anyone wish to speak in favor? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill 1118. Do I hear a motion on the bill?
Second.
A motion to pass bill number 1118 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilman O'Brien. Any further comments from any council member on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Krasinski.
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Loyan.
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarite.
Yes.
Mr. McCabe.
Yes.
Mr. Root.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Let the record show that bill number 1118 was passed by a vote of 9 to 0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 1318?
Resolution of the St. Joseph County Council authorizing approval of the Master Energy Plan and performance guarantee under the guarantee's contract.
Petitioner? Please state your name and address for the record, sir. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Phil Yuska. I'm a project development engineer with Performance Services out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So I just want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about the Guaranteed Energy Savings Project. As you may recall, over the last 18 months or so, we've worked diligently with the county to develop the best energy savings program to address the needs of the county's buildings. So actually back in July, as you may recall, we received approval from the county for the contract terms and conditions. We established a not to exceed amount and received direction from the county to proceed with detailed design and pricing improvements. And so we did a lot of detailed design, we did plans, we did specifications, we walked contractors through buildings, and got all that detailed together. And then we developed the final content of that master energy plan. And then last month, of course, we met with the committee and reviewed in detail all the different line items to finalize that scope of result that result from our design and pricing efforts. So tonight, what we're hoping is that we get final approval for that scope of work, and upon your approval, we're really ready now to begin implementation. Start generating the energy savings for the county that will, so that you'll have the funds to repay the bond. In the next few weeks, of course, we're going to begin lighting upgrades, LED lighting upgrades in all the county facilities. We're going to start implementing the HVAC improvements over at the JJC. Also, we have a lot of work to do with the water controls over at the jail and work in other buildings. So if we are able to get your approval tonight to begin that implementation, we are currently planning to be done with the implementation this calendar year. So by this time next year, the county will be realizing the full amount of the savings. So, and the primary benefits to the county that we reviewed over the last several months are certainly we're going to be able to address a significant amount of deferred maintenance that exists in the building, so replacing old antiquated equipment with new equipment. We're going to be improving the working environments in the buildings, and of course lowering operating costs. So, but I think the greatest benefit, of course, is the county will be reinvesting in your facilities that serve the people of St. Joseph County, helping to assure that your buildings are able to serve the county for years to come. So we want to thank the county for your cooperation. We want to especially thank the employees of the county facilitating our access to gathering data, having contractors walk through. They were very cooperative and were able to help us assemble what we think is a great program for the county. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council for the petitioner? Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit, just refresh everybody's ear, probably 7 feet clear, I've never heard this before, how the verification and measurement of this is going to happen? How are we going to verify that we're actually saving the energy that's been promised and that we're all expecting?
So we do this on all of our projects. So we do it in different methodologies depending upon the improvement. But one of the most common ones is we utilize your building automation systems. So for instance, at the Justice Center, we'll be installing new building automation control systems there. You already have them at the jail and many of your other facilities. But we use those systems to track the performance of the equipment. So how long do fans, how long do pumps run during the day? So part of our new program is to install, say, higher efficiency equipment. And so we know what that efficiency is. We know how big that equipment is, how big the motors are, for example. And so we actually track that runtime, and we do trends. We measure that equipment long term, and then it's math essentially to calculate what your current utility rate is and how much to determine how much energy those pieces of equipment are utilizing. So, and also part of the program is energy leadership, where we actually put work with the county, put people in place to help ensure that lights keep turned off and that building schedules are kept, and that we help the county ensure that we see the savings long term.
Things along the lines of teaching councilmen to turn off their lights when they leave the offices, come out here.
I don't think you heard it. Any other questions from council? Mr. O'Brien?
Could you just briefly explain how the guarantee aspect works? That is that there's no risk to the county because if you don't save enough, your company will actually make up the difference?
Right. So this is a kind of I say it's unique. It's fairly common in the state of Indiana. So a state statute allows governmental entities to enter into agreements, guaranteed energy savings performance contracts, where the intent is that the savings pay for the contract over time. And so the savings generated by all of our improvements, all the LED lighting retrofits, HVAC improvements, water, so it's not just energy, it's also water or other utilities. We've also done some things with changing some of your meter rates and identifying that meters are on the correct rate structure. But all of that is brought together, and we measure that over time and keep track of that. And so we report back to you, and we'll do that with the energy manager that's in place, and report back to you on where you stand with regard to those meeting those savings. So per the statute, we reconcile that every year, and if for some reason we were to fall short of that, then we're on the hook for the difference. And so because of that, we don't want that to happen, and so we try to be very conservative in our approach. And if we think it's going to save $100, then we're going to project, maybe $80 or $90. The county has some flexibility in how they operate the facilities, and that we ensure that we make that guaranteed amount at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council for the petitioner?
Yeah, just one other important point, I think is, in the example you gave there, if you thought it was going to save $100, and so you guaranteed it was going to save $80, but it actually did save $100, where's the extra $20?
Great question. The county keeps all savings. So performance services doesn't take any of that additional money. There's no shared savings or anything of that nature. So if we exceed the savings amount, the county keeps any excess, and obviously you can do what you will with that.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
So, actually, along those lines, has Performance Services had any municipalities in Indiana that have not met or exceeded the guaranteed savings?
We have not. So, performance contracting is our only business. It's all we do. And so we're very careful to make sure that every project is a success. And so we did a large project with the city of Indianapolis about 5 or 6 years ago or so. We've also worked with other counties and other some smaller cities in the state. We've worked with probably close to 200 school corporations within the state. We've done several projects at Penn Harris right down the road. And we make sure that those are all successful and they all meet their guaranteed savings requirements.
You've never once had to actually chip in and pay for the shortfall.
Correct.
Mr. Kazrak?
Just based on the numbers in the contract and the agreement, I think it's commendable and it's great for our constituents in Irving County that you're guaranteeing that we're going to save $711,000 a year over the life of the contract. And besides that, like you mentioned, we're going to be taking care of a lot of deferrals that we would have never had a way to pay for it other than through this operational energy savings contract. So I think it's good government and good public policy that we're doing this, and we appreciate the engagement with Performance Services, and your track record speaks for itself. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on bill number 1318. Does anyone wish to address the council in favor of this bill?
Robin Challenor, 25612 Shorewood Court, South Bend, Indiana, 46619. I'm the director at Portage Manor, and I want to thank the council and the commissioners and the special committees that came together to put together this contract. Our building that we work out of was built in 1906. It's a very old building, but it's been well maintained, and this is another way that we can continue to maintain that building and house the less fortunate in the county. Currently, we have 133 residents of St. Joe County that we take care of, disabled adults. We just admitted 4 homeless people who are currently living there indigent. We get no revenue or income for them, but we are able to support them off of revenue from the state, which again doesn't take any county money. So again, I want to thank you for including Portage Manor in this project and investing in the buildings of St. Joe County.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Evelyn Kirkwood, Director of St. Joseph County Parks. I too want to express our thanks on behalf of the Parks Board's staff and all of the visitors that use the St. Joseph County Parks for this little shot in the arm to help us cover some of the deferred maintenance that you addressed in terms of energy failings that we have had, aging boilers, water systems, water delivery systems, lighting systems, etc. So we greatly appreciate this effort, this group effort by so many people, and thank you for championing the cause of energy savings in St. Joseph County, because that can only benefit all of our residents here in St. Joe County. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Please state your name and address for the record. Sir, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Robert Griffin. I live at 4616 Fellows Street. I last left South Bend in 1965, returned in November of 2017. I'm a retired federal contracting officer, and I do have some experience in working with the Corps of Engineers and also Navy facilities engineers, both with the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Department of Defense. And this plan is certainly good. I wouldn't... It's hard to speak out against energy conservation and base maintenance or facilities maintenance because they're always underfunded, not only here but in the federal government. So I'm not going to attempt to do that because it's a worthy goal, and as a lady just spoke, does have an effect on people. What I would say is this, though. I've been looking at this for 3 or 4 days, and some of these numbers on the master energy plan look a little rich to me as far as some of the commodity purchased, as far as the values of the individual components. We did a little cross-check with some suppliers in the area, and they found that these prices were a little high. Based on my experience in federal contracting with energy projects, I also found they rather large sum of $315,000 for a part-time energy conservation manager. I can tell you that a facility the size of Fort Bragg, which probably has 500 buildings, not just 11, would never pay anywhere near that amount of money for an energy conservation manager full-time as opposed to part-time. So what I'm saying is I think this is a worthy goal. I think that, although I wish I was here in 2015 to sort of look at this RFQ, because a lot of these questions about past performance would have been probably by whoever the contracting officer was. But I would say this, it may be worth of your time to scrutinize some of these numbers in the master energy plan that you're being asked to approve tonight, to look and see if they're really a good investment. Take a real good look at that $315,000 figure for energy conservation, because I cannot remember in my time dealing with this, which when I wasn't shooting at people, I was doing these contracts from the 70s on until the mid-2000s. That number is very high. So it's a good objective. The contract was probably properly written. I don't know if it was vetted by the state of Indiana. I know it is compliance with the law, which will allow this to take place. But the numbers are just a little bit, based upon my experience, a little bit high. So that's my contribution. It's probably a good bill, but it does seem a little bit rich to me. Regardless of whether you guarantee or not, you always have to remember that you can make more money if the prices are a little more realistic. Okay. Because savings are savings. But if you're paying $50,000 for a $30,000 car, then your savings might be somewhat truncated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
My name is Scott Peacock, and I reside at 1409 East Colfax, South Bend. I would like to request that this whole energy conservation contract could be postponed for a week or two so that my little group here and myself could do a little bit more. Unfortunately, we haven't had the time, but we will definitely take the time in the next week or two to be able to prove that some of these numbers seemed a little bit high. And I think that our intent would only be to save money for the citizens of St. Joe County. And I know I don't mean to be hypocritical, but a lot of the numbers just don't make any sense to us. I think it was in year 10 that the whole package started to break even. And I think I could probably be targeted, but I don't have the facts in front of me at this point, but I'd like to be given a little bit of time that we could just research this, because I think we can come up with a substantial savings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition of this bill? Hearing none, just like an opportunity to rebut some of the comments that were made.
Yeah, I tried to take a few notes, and I always like it when concerned citizens are active and involved. I think that's always a great thing. With regard to having more time to look at this, we have been working on this for I think at least 18 months. I know we've had other public meetings where we've discussed the program. So hopefully people have had the opportunity to look into it and ask questions. I know others have in the past. Also, as part of that design process, so we actually, again, as I mentioned earlier, we actually did detailed plans, like for the Juvenile Justice Center. We had engineers actually create the blueprints and the specs. And then we went out and we got competitive bids for all of that. So there's a lot of details that go into each of these measures. But we did get competitive bids. We did do a lot of detail work on it, it does take a tremendous amount of development long-term and in engineering over the past 18 months to put the project together. I think that's all.
Mr. Dandrack? Sir? Sir?
Could you address the question about the cost of oversight? $315,000
For the energy conservation specialist?
Yeah, so essentially that has to do with putting in what we call an energy leader in place, and it's essentially it's a key element to the program of focused attention on energy conservation in managing the utilities long term for the county. So I guess that is a significant energy savings component of the grand scheme of things. But also it's not just those individuals that are put in place, it's also our team that's essentially setting up that whole program for long-term success. So there's software, significant amount of training, we're setting up all the utility databases as well. So there is one individual that's essentially tasked with that long-term, but the bulk of that funds go towards the initial setup and establishment and training of that program to make sure it's started on the right foot, so to speak.
So I looked at the proposal on that line item, and just to verify, estimated annual utility savings, $110,000. Are we thinking, and then of the cost of that position per annum, so are we thinking that person's position, they're going to pay for themselves?
Absolutely.
Cost savings?
Absolutely, and that's, again, kind of going back to our experience. So we've done this at other large campus-type clients in the state of Indiana. One that comes to mind is Fort Wayne Community Schools. So we saved them actually a lot, probably about twice that amount for an energy manager in place. So now they have more buildings, but we found that it's a very quick payback when we had that focused individual in place to ensure that again, as I mentioned earlier, lights are turned off. And not only these measures are implemented, which is part of the program, but then we go further, we take the next step, and we look at other opportunities, other utility bills that are maybe on the wrong rate schedule, or other things that we could do long term. So that's their focus, just reducing energy costs. And again, you're absolutely right. The point is that they pay for themselves in a short amount of time.
Oh, sir, but when you say that they pay for themselves, unless I misunderstood the comment, I think the application of the comment was that's fine and good, but that number seemed very high. And if that number was lower, then the savings would be greater. Am I right in that interpretation of what you guys said, or not?
Not quite sure how to answer that.
No, that's what I said.
Okay.
Isn't that what you said, sir?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
You're talking about
Mr. O'Brien?
And so, just to be clear, one worker is not being paid $300,000.
Correct.
That's what I think it may appear to, if you're looking at the schedule, it might look that way. But that cost encompasses software, training, a whole team of folks that are supporting this person and also interacting with the county employees in the county offices. And at some point, the county may hire a per that role and pay them $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year, or eliminate that role. But it's not going to be a $300,000 year after year after year cost.
You're correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Peacock, did you catch that, sir?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Nolan?
May I ask another question or so?
Additionally, this $315,000, all the things that Mr. O'Brien mentioned, that's for a 2-year period.
That's correct.
That's for a 2-year period. Okay, right.
The performance services will provide us for 2 years. After that, it's up to the county. We choose to continue that or not.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing none. Public hearing is now closed. May I have a motion on the bill?
Move to approve.
approval. Second.
A motion to move for approval on Bill 1318 is made by Mr. Nolan, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any further comments from any council member in regards to Bill 1318? I guess I would make the comment, based upon some of the things that were said, as far as the gentleman, the two gentlemen that spoke, they definitely were not saying they're against the project, but making there again that implication that given a little bit more time, could see additional savings. So I guess with that said, is there any interest from this council? I know the motion's on the floor, but any interest of entertaining allowing them to do that? Any comment on that question? Mr. Krasinski?
I would like to sit down with the gentlemen just to get their reasoning and facts, just to see what they're talking about. I have no problem doing that.
Any other comments? I appreciate that. Any other comments or thoughts on that? There again, I know there's a motion on the floor, but any other thoughts or comments? Mr. Tadrak?
Is there any disadvantage if we did not vote for this tonight in terms of implementation and completion of the project and energy savings? If it was postponed for an additional month, would
Just to address that question, I would just reiterate that we have been working on this for several months, and the county has secured the financing, and so the bond payment will be due. And I'm probably not the best person to talk to this for the county, so it's really important that we start implementing the project so that we can generate the savings so the county can make those payments. Also say that our original time frame was that we would start implementing work. If we continue to delay it, contractors can not hold their bids. Sometimes, pricing increases can occur. So we've tried to lock them in pending a start date at this time. So the thing that it does for us, it does increase our costs, and it pushes off your ability to achieve those savings to make those payments.
1 month would do all that, sir?
It would have an impact.
Mr. Krasinski?
One more question.
Yes, sir.
You've been very informative performing services throughout this whole project. One thing that I haven't seen is the actual quotes or the bids of the contractors that you're using. Is there a way that this council could get copies of that? Mm-hmm. Or was it sent to us and I just didn't see it?
Well, I think John Burke, your consultant, has reviewed those. I'm not sure who he shared those with, but we do have those. And I think some of the council members are aware of the contractors we invited to those bids. So we did try to select local contractors for as much work as we could, and still keep the project within our budget.
I understand all that.
But those bids are available.
It's public record, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but we have them, and we will share them with the county.
Thank you.
Mr. Nolan?
As part of, as it was explained to us several times, as part of performance services, way to do business in this contract is included in that, is it's all open to trust. So I mean, at any point in time, whether it's tomorrow or June or after the project is done, you can see what their costs were, what their markups were, what their profits were. it's all, I don't know, and I'm certain that's not public information, but this group is. Is that correct? Am I correct in what I just said?
Yes, I don't know that we would make that public.
Exactly, I said it's not
Public,
information.
yeah.
It's information this council is privy to.
Right, you're
Commissioners
yes,
are
you're
not.
the owner.
Yes.
That's right.
If a month is detrimental
Nothing happened,
to
they're
all
gonna
the-
have to vote on
to the cost and price of the project, could 2 weeks be attainable? We meet again on February 11th. We've had the public hearing tonight. It would just be a matter of a vote going forward. Could we achieve anything in 2 weeks that could get some of these questions answered and still achieve the same savings? We voted on it February 27th. At a special meeting, night of our council committee meeting, that would be the pleasure of the rest of the council.
So,
As a compromise to.
yeah, we want you to feel comfortable with the process. So whatever you guys think is best. It won't be, certainly, it won't be ideal. We'd like to get started, but we also want you to feel comfortable with the process. So if you feel that's necessary, that's one thing we did try to address in January, is go through the details of the scope of the project and answer any questions, so we could try to keep things moving. And so we're always, willing to provide you the information that the county needs to make good decisions. So it's whatever you think is best. We would like to get going so we can generate those savings for you. We haven't led any contracts yet. We haven't issued any purchase orders because we won't do that until you finalize our scope of work. But if there was a way we could get approval and still have those discussions, and if for some reason you wanted to modify some of the items, one thing that we have in the improvement list is an owner-directed allowance. So those are funds that the county can use at their discretion to address items that come up in the project. And so if for some reason an item were to come out of the project for whatever reason, it would go into that owner-directed allowance, and you still have control over those funds. So that may be another way that if we could still potentially proceed with the project, we could get some of the lighting and some of the things that really have the largest impact. And then if there was other discussions you wanted to have on some of the other line items, we could certainly do that and address it that way.
But to answer Mr. Catanzarot's question, if we waited 2 weeks, that would not be detrimental to the project moving forward. Did I hear you say that or not?
So it would not have serious consequences to the project moving forward. Although I would also say that every week we wait is another week we're not achieving the full savings for the county.
But it's a 15-year project, isn't it, sir?
It is.
So 2 weeks out of 15 years?
It is. So, but
I mean-
well, I guess what I'm saying is your first payment isn't waiting.
I understand that.
And Mr. Moore, I would add, to your credit, Phil, this is a transparent and public process.
It has
You
been.
guys have been very informative.
Thank you.
Definitely,
We've
without a doubt.
held several meetings. I know that the subcommittee has done a lot of work on this, and I appreciate all the work they've done to get us to this point. Not trying to slow this process down any, but some questions were raised. I didn't know we had any citizens with local expertise in doing the same kinds of things. I know Mr. Peacock has a very successful remodeling business, but the other gentleman with his military experience, I wasn't aware that we had a citizen who had that kind of experience who could lend themselves to us in this process. But I'll do whatever. I know there's a motion on the floor, so I'll yield to that.
Motion, any other? I'm sorry, Mr. Krasinski?
Phil, isn't some of these facilities, though, we're kind of time sensitive on what needs to be done there? I believe, with the JJC and the chillers and so on.
You're right, especially for the chillers. We ideally would like to get those chillers in by the summer. I don't, until we actually receive full approval, we can't submit a purchase order to the manufacturer to find out when those will ship. So that is time sensitive. So the environmental items are probably most time sensitive, and yeah, it would be probably the Juvenile Justice Center. The rest of it is, again, it's just a lot of work with those facilities to plan movement throughout those facilities, so we minimize any disruption to like inmates at the jail or other county workers in facilities. So it just pushes everything back.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Mr. O'Brien?
I just want to make sure, putting all the questions together here. If we did approve this tonight, and over the next few weeks or months, identify something in the project that we decide, no, this just does not make economic sense, say it's $200,000, we could stop that. That $200,000 we could spend elsewhere because it would be part of the owner's allocated fund or development funds. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct. So, and kind of going back to the earlier point, so we're always open to working with local contractors and equipment suppliers, but this project is a little bit different because we're on the hook for the savings, so we've got to make it perform. So I'm not saying that there's not, but there may be, say, a product B that's cheaper on the market that maybe we might save a little bit money. But because we're on the hook for the performance savings for it, we have to be very careful of what we're willing to install. So we want to have your input, but in the end, we have to work together because there's a financial guarantee in place. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Krasinski?
One more. Phil, so then is the guarantee the length of the 15 years then, the guarantee on the equipment, or is it manufacturer's guarantee, or how do the warranties work on?
It is. So in general, it's we don't warranty all of the equipment for 15 years. So the nice thing is like the LED lighting that's going to be done, the burn hours are much longer, so you'll certainly feel comfortable. You're certainly not be replacing LED bulbs within 15 years. It's possible you might replace a few motors of that nature. So we don't maintain the equipment long term. So your staff will still need to do grease bearings and things of that nature. But I'm trying to think of anything that we're installing that doesn't have at least a 15-year life cycle, and I think everything that we are doing does.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council on 1318? Hearing none, there is a motion on the floor to pass Bill 1318. That motion was made by Mr. Nolan. It was seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Hearing no further comments, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Mr. Floyd?
No.
Mr. Catanzaro?
No.
Mr. Cato?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Can I have a clarification?
Yes.
The two gentlemen that spoke, is someone besides myself going to speak to them or come back to this council, or?
I'm sure that can be set up. That's
Mr. Krasinski?
No.
Mr. Morton?
no.
Motion fails 5-4.
The record show that bill number 1318 failed by a vote of 5-4.
Mr. President, can you just ask a question real quick?
Mr. Root?
It is in our rules that if a bill fails, it doesn't come back for 6 months, correct?
Correct.
So this is now dead for 6 months, unless we have a motion to reconsider from one of the majority on the floor tonight.
You're absolutely right.
That's correct.
So the motion to reconsider would be to bring it,
It would have to come from one of the people who voted no.
Correct.
It would have to have a majority vote to reconsider the question tonight.
right,
Otherwise, this project is dead for 6 months.
right. I'd like to make that motion.
Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Secretary. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider resolution 4-18, Bill 1318.
Second.
And in part of my motion, I'd like to postpone the vote to February 27th.
Second.
Motion to postpone the vote to February 22nd as under reconsideration was made by Councilman Catanzarite. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments on that motion? Mr. Catanzarite?
Question for our legal counsel. Does that satisfy
I believe it
the
does.
failure of the 5 to 4?
I believe it
Keep
does.
it alive?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. O'Brien?
So if I say yes, then we can reconsider and vote on it in 2 weeks. Is that the?
I believe that's what.
Correct.
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. McKayo?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Let the record show that the motion to reconsider and vote in 2 weeks was passed by a vote of 9-0.
You'll have to notice it up, yeah.
Clerk, will you please read the next bill under amendments, bill number 618.
An ordinance amending ordinance 6817, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees of St. Joseph County for the year 2018. Auditor?
Ms. Hess, committee report, please.
Mr. President, bill number 618 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Petitioner, Mr. Hammond.
So simply, we had a position open for the vast majority of 2017 for programmer in the IT department. And so in the reconsolidation for 2018 in terms of the IT department, we decided to eliminate that position and have the money, $46,000 of it go for a technician, and the rest just go to Innovation Technologies for equipment and whatnot.
Any questions from council for Mr. Hammond? Thank you, sir. We'll open public 618. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill 618. Do I hear a motion?
Motion for passage.
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 6-18 was made by Councilman Catanzarite. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. McKayo?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
He walked out.
Well, then we'll come back. How about Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Everybody else.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Let the record show that bill number 6-18 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, read the next bill, bill number 718.
An ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees of St. Joseph County for the year 2018, Department 32 Area Planning Commission.
Mr. Nolan, committee report, please, sir.
President, bill number 8-18 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Petitioner? Petitioner? Larry?
That was 7-18.
I thought it was a little further down the agenda here. This is part of the $25,000 that was allocated to our department for 2018. When we had to do that or made that request, that was in the middle of the budget cycle last year for this year. Wasn't quite sure exactly what positions I needed still to assist us in the transition, so we decided what to do and hired a part-time person. We've been paying that part-time person for 2018 out of the intern line item where that $25,000 went into. So we decided that the best position for the people we want to hire is part-time under 30 hours. So this $20,000 will cover 1 to 2 people part-time for that, leaving the $5,000 behind to continue paying for the person we currently have in place.
Any questions from council for the petitioner? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on Bill 7-18. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion on 7-18?
Motion to passage.
Motion to 7-18 was made by Councilman Catanzarite. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarite.
Yes.
Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Root.
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski.
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 7-18 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 8-18?
Ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the members and employees of St. Joseph County for the 2018 Department of Justice Superior Court.
Mr. McCahill, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. President, comes to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Petitioner?
Hi, Bridget Wazalewski, Superior Court Administrator. We're Department 20. Do I say that? No, instead of 21. Just so you know. Superior Court would like to add a part-time court reporter position to work in Title 40 court only. This hourly position would be 100% 40 funded using the incentive fund 8895.
Any questions from council for the petitioner? Hearing none, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on 8-18. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion on 8-18? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 8-18 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilman O'Brien. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Tanzarite.
Yes.
Mr. McHale.
Aye.
Yes. Mr. Krasinski.
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 8-18 was passed by a vote of 9-0. All financial issues were heard and discussed at our January 23rd committee meeting. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. Clerk, will you please read bill number 9-18?
Ordinance appropriating and transferring monies for the purpose herein specified from the several departments here listed with St. Joseph County government.
May I have on bill number 9-18?
Mr. Morton, I have a question.
Mr. Deloy?
Under appropriations, F, Commissioners, Health and Capital Project Fund, $200,000. It's on page 4 of the paperwork that we received tonight. I was wondering if Mr. Shalio or somebody else could explain the breakdown of the $200,000 of the Health and Capital Project Fund.
Bill Shalio, Economic Development Offices on the 11th floor. Sorry, it's been a long week. I can't remember where I live anymore. I couldn't hear the question. Something about 200,000, what are we using it for? Is that the question? Okay. So we have 3 professional service proposals we'd like to use those funding for. One is for financial services, one is for legal services, and one is for land planning services. The scope of the project is really to examine the whole Angela corridor, or the whole State Road 933 corridor from Angela to the state line. So the majority of the funds for the land planning would be used for that. The financial services would also be used for that same expanse. There would be some used to examine the potential for creation of a TIF district or a tax abatement proposal that could also fund some development in that corridor, specifically in the Angela Douglas corridor. The legal services, too, would be used to help examine financial or legal issues as it relates to the relinquishment as well as any establishment of an economic development area. The total scope of those proposals, I think, is it's about 175, 180,000. We put some extra money in, so we wouldn't have to come immediately back in case additional cost related. We see some additional costs, probably most likely in the land planning proposal. We're going to be dealing with Roseland and how the 933 relinquishment would affect the Roseland corridor. So I would imagine with public meetings and things like that, the scope of the contract, we're proposing to use Avonmarsh consultants here locally. That proposal scope could expand a little bit, so we didn't want to have to come back midway through a project to ask for additional funding. So we put $200,000 in. We anticipate if we have less expense, we would ask the money be appropriated back to the Health Wind account. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. O'Brien?
I may have told you this before, but can you break out the numbers that add up to 175? How much is land used?
Absolutely. So, excuse me, the land planning proposal, 8,000. The financial services would be 15,000, and the legal proposal would be between. It's a time and or hourly basis would be 75 to 80,000 is the estimate. So, just under 180 something thousand, I believe, or just over 180,000. So I could do the math, but.
Did that legal number go up since last Friday?
The number I have in this Post-it note says 80,000, so I mean, it could have gone up since our conversation. We had estimated between 70 and 80,000, so I mean, I guess being conservative and put in at 80,000, that would be the high end. Again, if we can be resources, we would turn back whatever funds we don't use.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Morton, I have an amendment or a motion I'd like to make. I would move that the Commissioner's Health Wind Capital Project Fund be reduced to $175,000.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to change the amount under the Commissioner's Health Wind Capital Project Fund from $200,000 to $175,000. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any further council discussion? Mr. Root?
I'm just wondering where your numbers are coming from. Could you explain why 175?
Right. Mr. Shadwell said that if you add up the financial services, the legal services, and the land planning services, it comes out to about $175,000. And then he's built in $20,000 to $25,000 in case there's an overage. And we prefer that if he needs more money, he'd come back and ask us for it.
Any other questions from council at this point? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. With that said, clerk, will you please take the roll?
My question is, have you voted on the amendment yet, or do you have to, is it the motion?
Wasn't that the first motion?
Yeah.
That was the first
That's
motion.
what he's asked you to pull the council on, I
Right,
believe.
that was the first motion.
Okay. Thank you.
First
Mr.
motion is
McKay.
for this or the whole bill?
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Root?
No.
This is on the amendment.
Just for clarification, we are voting on...
Changing the amount. That was the first motion that was on the floor. The amount listed under F was $200,000. The first motion on the floor made by Mr. Toloyan and seconded by Mr. O'Brien was to change that amount under the Health and Capital Project from $200,000 to $175,000. That's what we're voting on.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
No.
Mr. Lyon?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzer?
No.
Mr. Morton?
No.
Motion fails.
So,
Now you can have a motion on the bill,
pardon?
I have a motion on the bill.
on the bill,
We
on the
have to
entire
do another
bill.
motion, right?
Correct, yes.
Right. Okay, since that motion failed, we need another motion on the floor.
Make a motion to approve bill number 9-18.
Second.
There was a motion to approve bill number 918 as printed in tonight's agenda. A motion and a second. A motion was made by Mr. Nolan and seconded by Ms. Hess. Any further council discussion on this motion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes, all but F. It's okay, you can vote like that.
okay.
You can do that though, that's fine.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. Bryan,
Yes, all but F, no for F.
It's not gonna make
Yes.
a difference anyway,
Yeah.
it's gonna pass.
Mr. Williams,
Yes, but no on that.
Mr. Tanzarek,
Yes.
Mr. McHale,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
I guess I'd like to make the comment that, like was stated earlier, that there was some cushion in that 200,000. So, if in fact that money is not used, that's returned to the county, correct?
We'll go back into that fund.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the health fund,
That's what I'm saying.
which has about $750,000 right
Okay. With that said, yes.
now. Motion carries 9-0 with the exception that you have 3 votes that were in opposition to section F.
So it counts.
Let's run it so that bill number 918 was passed by a vote of 9-0 with the exception of a 6-3 vote that 3 were against item F underneath. Next on the agenda under miscellaneous matters, we have bill number 1218.
1218 is a scrivener's error regarding the 2018 budget book, Department 19 Circuit Court.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. McKay Hill, committee report out of Human Services Criminal Justice, sir,
That's for 9817.
for 1218.
1218.
It came with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Murphy's going to address.
This is just a typographical error in the budget book. The total amount of the budget does not change. It's just this salary is excluded by the state. This is table.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any questions for Mr. Counsel? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on bill number 1218. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 1218. Do I hear a motion?
Move for passage.
Motion to pass bill number 1218 was made by Councilman O'Brien. It was seconded by Councilman Nolan. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Lyon,
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarek,
Yes.
Mr. McHale,
Aye.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 1-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 1218 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 418?
418, ordinance of the St. Joseph County Council approving a collective bargaining agreement between St. Joseph County, Indiana and the telecommunicators of County, Indiana, asking petitioners record of peace.
Ms. Hess, committee report, please.
Mr. President, bill number 418 comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Peter J. Agostino, 131 South Taylor Street, South Bend, Indiana. Please approve. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Triple told me I had to keep it short.
That was smooth, man.
I corrected him that short is not a good word,
That
but
was
brief
smooth.
is better.
That was smooth. Any questions from council for the petitioner? Mr. Augustino? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Nolan?
Did you present all the bills?
At your
It's going to
pleasure.
be the next item. The next item.
Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Tanzarek?
We did read the contract, duration of the contract?
12/30/2019.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on Bill 418. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 418. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to passage.
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 418 was made by Councilman Catanzarite. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Tanzer.
Yes.
Mr. McHale.
Aye.
Mr. Root.
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Let the record show that bill number 418 was passed by a vote of 9-0. Clarification of no votes, of the no votes, that means council people that voted no, on bill number 416, ordinance number 5116, denying the special use filed by Charles Hayes Incorporated per U.S. District Court case number 316-CV-00730, remand order dated December 5th, 2017. Mr. Triple.
Members of the council, on December the 5th, 2017, in the appeal that was filed by Charles Hayes to the federal court regarding their denial of special use for the tower in Harris Township, the court found that there was substantial evidence in the public hearing and in the record that was submitted to the court to support the council's decision to deny the special use. However, the court also remanded, meaning that they're asking the council member voted no to provide some additional factual support for their no votes. The court was concerned that the matter was denied 6-2, and only a couple of the council members actually made comment prior to voting in regards to what their basis was for denying the special use. So again, the court is comfortable, it appears to us from an interpretation of the order, that there's substantial evidence in the record to support the denial. They would like to hear specifically from the members that voted no to provide facts on which they voted no. And I'm glad to go through the order of those that voted no. The first one is Mr. Noland, but apparently there's a question first. Mr.
Oh, I'm
Noland.
sorry. Okay, I was just going to express to you why I voted no, but my esteemed colleague was first.
As usual, the president of the council, pursuant to our procedures, will get an opportunity to speak last. So,
I thank you for that opportunity.
so I would ask Mr. Nolan first to render his opinion why he voted no.
I guess the major reason was that I was able to attend a public meeting that was held by the petitioner with several, I would assume around 30 of the neighbors prior to that vote, and it was, I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying 100% of the constituents in the neighborhood, people that showed up were opposed to the current, or to the petitioner's location where they wanted to put it for a multitude of reasons. Mainly, I would say the most prevalent one was that the township trustee wanted to negotiate putting the tower at the township land at the fire station there, and they were very eager to engage in those negotiations. And also, there were several members that expressed their property values could be diminished, devalued with the installation of the tower there.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Ms. Hess.
Based on the number of neighbors who showed up that night to demonstrate, were very upset about having the tower in their neighborhood, again affecting their property values, considering there was a viable alternative site that could be considered at the fire station, and that they were apparently ready to negotiate, and his tower was not interested in doing that. And then the feedback also from the council colleagues who did attend that meeting, providing additional support, that the neighbors were opposed to having it in their neighborhood.
And I'd also like to clarify, Ms. Hess, for purposes of the record, you did vote no against the special use.
Yes.
And Mr. Nolan, the same question I'll ask you. You did vote no, just to clarify that. Okay. The next one that voted no, I believe, but he can confirm that, is Mr. Taloyan.
Triple. I voted no based on my concerns over the diminishment of the property values as expressed by the remonstrators. I also voted no based on the fact that there was another viable and, in my opinion, superior site for the tower.
Thank you, Mr. Toloyan. Mr. McCahill, you voted no as well, correct?
That's correct.
And what were the basis of your reasons?
One of the main reasons was that there was another location by the fire station in Harris Township. I was under the impression that they were going to get together with the Harris Township trustee. Also, the remonstrators made it clear to me that their property value would go down if it was where it was initially going to be located. I felt that by the fire station would have been a lot better place and wouldn't have diminished the property value of the fire station.
Very good. Men voted no as well.
Correct. I voted no because of the remonstrators' arguments that they were very concerned about what the project would do to their property values. And it seemed to me that there was another location that was fairly convenient that would have worked as well, if not better, than the proposed site.
Thank you, Mr. Root. President Morton, you voted no.
Yes, this will be pretty redundant, but all kidding aside, my vote was based upon the potential impact on the property values as expressed by the neighbors who came to the public hearing that evening, and they also expressed the fact that they felt like it was not pleasing as far as, I mean, obviously no one wants a tower in their backyard, but not aesthetically pleasing, can't even say it. And number three, I was very surprised that Mr. Hayes and his company were not even willing to about the alternative site. If I understand that the township trustee had said he had tried and tried again to try to start some type of negotiations with Mr. Hayes and his company, and they were just unwilling to do that. So.
Thank you very much.
Aesthetically pleasing, that's what I was trying to say.
Very good. Yep, we'll get it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Next, thank you. Next, under unfinished business is bill number 9817.
Mr. President,
Mr. Nolan.
I'd like to make the motion that we take bill number 98-17 off the table and send back to committee for further consideration.
Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
There's a motion to take bill number 9817 off the docket tonight and take it back to council for further consideration. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Clerk, I'm sorry?
Just a question to Mr. Triple under our rules. Does that pertain to these kind of bills, Mr. Triple, as far as length of time to act on them? Or is that land use, I'm thinking of where it reverts?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which bill you're referring to.
9817 is a fiscal matter. I thought we had a rule in our rules that stated if we didn't act on something within a certain amount of time, it will automatically...
I'm not familiar. If it is, I'm not familiar with it, but I'll look into it.
That's why I didn't know if delaying this would be detrimental.
I think you can delay it. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Mr. President, anything after that?
Is it land use?
Land use has time.
Land use has restrictions, yes.
The council rules say that any bill that's not heard after 1 year may be put on the public agenda by the petitioner.
Okay.
So it's a 1 year on anything else.
And we've had
So
them.
we can return it back to committee.
We can return it back to committee then, if that's the question.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Deloyan?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Let the record show that bill number 9817 was passed by a vote of 9-0 to return. We have a table. Next is new business. I'm sorry, privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor. Limited to 3 minutes on items not on tonight's agenda.
Just leave it together for now.
Next is a motion to adjourn. So a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You guys have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
There's a clean copy there.